Hope's another word. Even seen the name Hope Not Hate, you probably heard of that movement and everything. Everything's about hope, but economics isn't about hope. Economic reality doesn't care about people's hope.
And I hope that everything that he says he will do.
But there's the issue, because she hopes that what Jeremy Corbyn promises he can carry out. What does that matter? Okay, he's no longer the Labour Party leader, so it's no longer the case. He could be a future politician, but the reality is, see, when they're put into that position, become the Prime Minister, how they actually go about things, there are consequences for their actions. Economic reality will never permit it. And what ends up happening is it backfires. Take, for example, in France, can't even remember the guy's name. He raised the tax rates to about 75% or something like that, right? All these socialists in France were like, yeah, we want more socialism. How else are you going to get more socialism? You need more money, don't you? They got what they wanted. 75% tax rate. As soon as the 75% tax rate went up, they all went out rioting against it. It really is like the dog that chases its own tail running circles.
I have that belief in him.
And there you have it. They have that belief. The belief, the hope, the feelings. It means nothing.
Free healthcare at the point of delivery should be a right of every individual in the UK.
Healthcare is not a right, folk. People who work for a living in this country are forced to pay for that. You cannot say that you have a right, shall I say, an entitlement to the earnings of another individual, because that is where the money comes from in order to pay for it. They are your slave, so that you don't have a right to healthcare. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I'm saying, oh well, I only want healthcare affordable for the rich, because that isn't the case. They always try to use that argument.
The type of politicians we've had this far have created this mess. I know people who work 2 jobs and are still struggling to pay their bills. The fact that we've got nurses going to food banks, all of the difficulties that we have, we've got because we've gone for that type of politician. And I just don't think young people are buying it anymore.
She works her arse off, and I can understand where she's coming from. These people really do work hard. I've got nothing but respect for them for that. Unfortunately, they just don't understand the solution to the problems. They seem to think that the solution is mere socialism, and they really don't understand how that's going to cripple them. They think it's just a case it's as simple as just making things free. Free this and free that and free this, that and the next thing. Well, if that's the case, then why would you need to work for a living? And the economy isn't as simplistic as that. Again, the consequences that follow that. Heart's in the right place, but she just doesn't understand. This is why the Labour Party appeals to that of this voter base, because it's all based on emotions. All these beliefs and hopes, not actual information. They have all these good intentions, and I can understand their heart's in the right place, but they just don't understand the consequences, and that's because they just don't understand economics. Again, I don't say that in a derogatory manner, it's just the truth.
As nurses, we are leaders. Our core values are care, compassion, competence, communication, courage and commitment. Not only do we need these qualities in nurses, in the hospitals and out in the community, we need this in Parliament as well.
You see, it's all these words like this of being kind, considerate, compassionate, and I'm not saying that, these nurses aren't. The nurses are not the problem, and the doctors and all that, they're not the problem of why the NHS is a failure. They do a tremendous job, and people like yourself really do everything that they can. We are very grateful for them, for the work that they do. She doesn't understand that these politicians are faced with the economic reality. Regardless of what politicians promise you, would want to do for you, it wouldn't matter what politicians want to do for you. What they want to do for you is irrelevant if they got the money there to pay for it. And in order for them to, give you those so-called free things, those politicians are going to have to compensate elsewhere in the economy. That's what it means by economics is a study of trade-offs. Okay, we'll give you this, but we're going to have to take this away. And then when they take that away, folks start complaining about that. So then it's a bit like that thing with the cat, and it hits one down and the other one comes up, then it hits that one down and this one comes up. That's honestly what it's like. This is why folk just don't get it, because they don't understand the saying, what government gives to you, they can't give to you without taking from another first. So they have to take from elsewhere in the economy in order to compensate making way for these things. Politicians, they understand this. How can they not tell the population this? Why won't they just be honest with them? Well, the answer is because if they were to be honest with them, they wouldn't vote for them. My advice to these politicians is teach them economics. Many of them, I don't believe, want to do that, however.
Jeremy Corbyn comes across as a person who I believe he wants to see the things that he's talking about happen.
I believe, and he wants. Well, what does that matter? Economic reality doesn't really care. It's a bit like someone says, he wants, I believe, that we should have the higher minimum wage, but there's consequences that follow that, the higher unemployment and all the rest of it, reduction in working hours. They don't understand the consequences of their actions.
I believe what he says.
I believe what he says. It doesn't matter what you believe in.
Together we will restore the NHS. We will rebuild and transform Britain so that no one and no community is left behind.
So after all of these people basically saying of how they feel he's so truthful and everything, he's just lied to them. That is a lie. It's impossible for a healthcare system to provide for everyone. Every single year the NHS, long before the PFI deals, which by the way the Labour Party brought in, there was thousands being left in neglect every single year. More than 9,000 cancer patients die every single year. And that's just cancer patients alone. We're not even talking about those with heart disease problems and stuff like that. It's the inefficiency of the system because it's free at the point of use. You destroyed the information of profits and losses. Demand soared out of control. You're not going to get rid of the problem with the long waiting lines, etc. So that's not available for everyone then, is it? It's just this rhetoric just to get people to vote for you.
We're coming from, say, living in council estates, impoverished communities, so we have our own struggle going on. And rather than the people that are currently elected that are very much for the wealthy, Jeremy Corbyn kind of looks at it and says, okay, well, what about everyone else?
Somebody who may have came from a harsh background, it's very difficult for these people. Those who are left vulnerable are easily led by such information from the Labour Party. They can easily just speak any rhetoric that they want, lead them up the garden path with a load of lies and make all the promises of pie in the sky. Like I said, I mean, their heart's in the right place, but they don't understand.
The low points of the year have obviously been the corona crisis, which has shown the inequalities and injustice in our society.
It's all this rhetoric about the inequalities, and they always play into it. The good intention is to try and make people equal, but the dire consequences is you face trying to control the economy as a result of it and creating so many problems in the economy that leads to the exact opposite of what you were aiming for in the first place. That's what I was saying. Just because you've got good intentions, just because you intend for something to be a certain given way, doesn't mean it turns out that way in practice. You can have a goal for something. You may have the goal to raise the minimum wage and make people better off, but the reality is the consequences that follow that lead to the exact opposite of what you were aiming for. And that's what socialists just don't get. I don't know whether Jeremy Corbyn is aware of this or not. And the funny thing is, it's through running the printing press that he was wanting to do. The rich benefit fee, meanwhile the poor get poorer. Same thing with the rent controls. How convenient, but apparently Jeremy Corbyn's truthful.
Like, you know, as a grassroots politician, he was helping people like my mum bring their children to this country, like when they were, like, you know, separated from their child.
So let me get this straight. You managed to help get your visa with the help of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah,
You've come
when
to
I was
the
a
UK.
kid, when I was 10. I'm basically an immigrant, but I've not claimed benefits. I've added value to England and not taken away.
Well, that's nice and everything, you know. Got nothing wrong with immigration and folk coming here and want to, you know, live and work hard in this country. And this boy, for example, is obviously one of them. Good on him. But the issue is the fact that you can't ignore the laws of supply and demand. And people did have a reasonable argument for the control of immigration because of the danger of certain people that have been let in, and certainly proved that. He was influenced to support Jeremy Corbyn and vote for Jeremy Corbyn simply because he was brought to this country. Forget his policies, forget the fact that socialism would rip the arse out this country. That's the reason why I wasn't happy about the free flow of immigration, because we were taking immigrants from the sort of places escaping socialism only for them to come here and bring socialism with them. You know, it's a bit like those who are fleeing California. They see that socialism ripped the arse out of California and now they want to go and take it to Texas. The Texas people can actually agree with me in this. They can agree.
A lot of grime artists to just feel like politicians don't really know what it's like to be a normal person in the UK. So I feel like now they've seen somebody who really has time for the people, they thought, okay, let's get behind this guy.
Have you noticed how all of their arguments are really just a case of whether he's been there in public or it's the image? It's not really about his actual policies or it's how he says things. It's the image that he appears. The sort of lies that these politicians come out with. Another style of politician, much like that of Jeremy Corbyn, was none other than that of Nicola Sturgeon. This illustrates beautifully exactly what they're like. It's all an image. Just like how Nicola Sturgeon appears, you know, with kids around her, oh, how much they care. It's all an image. What really means something is actually the information they're providing and what they're doing, because actions speak louder than words. For so long, and you could even hear it from the likes of Ian Blackford.
My honourable friend is absolutely correct. It is a complete sham to say that negotiations are taking place. This is simply a government that's driving us towards no deal, and Parliament, thankfully, is standing up for its rights.
These were politicians who spat in the face of a no-deal Brexit. They were telling you how, oh, a no-deal Brexit, the sky's going to cave in, we're all going to die, oh, we need a deal, and Boris Johnson's never going to get a deal. You're just dreaming. And the Yellow Hammer document, oh, there's all going to be these food shortages, it's all because of a no-deal Brexit, it's going to be so catastrophic, we're going to crash out.
Crash out.
Crashing out. Crashing out.
Crash out. Crash out.
Crash out.
Everything is crash out. Crash out.
Crash out.
Crashing out. Crashing out.
Crash out. Crash out.
Crash out.
Exactly. Of course, she goes on to say this.
Well, leaving the European Union with no deal would be devastating for the Scottish economy and for the wider UK economy. It's unthinkable that that could be allowed to happen. Theresa May is obviously very hampered by the views of the hardline Brexiteers in her own party, but she really must put that to one side and act in the interests of the whole country, which is to get a deal.
And she says this.
What will be the impact on Scotland if, as the Prime Minister insists is going to be the case, there will be no extension, and then if there is no EU trade deal by the end of the year, what will the impact be in Scotland?
Pretty catastrophic, and I think that will be the impact on the whole of the UK. And I would have said that pre-COVID, but to add that impact onto the economic impact of what we're dealing with the virus just seems to me to be an unthinkable thing to do. And so even at this late stage, I would appeal to the Prime Minister not to allow that to happen. For goodness sake, our economy is already going to be struggling for some time to come with the impact of the virus. Do not add on economic suffering to economic suffering.
And then we get, just days before that, the deal that Boris Johnson managed to get just before we left there, because we've now left the customs union and the single market. Isn't it convenient how SNP voted against the deal that Boris Johnson got? Because there is only one other option if not for a deal. It would be the no-deal Brexit.
I've seen something, it just got sent to me, that's been issued by the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party. It is an attack ad against Nicola Sturgeon. I think it's really, really worth watching because it exposes her hypocrisy.
Leaving the European Union with no deal would be devastating for the Scottish economy and for the wider UK economy. It's unthinkable that that could be allowed to happen.
A deal, any deal, is better than no deal, and I hope the Prime Minister manages to resolve the issues that are outstanding and deliver what he always said would be really easy to deliver, which is a trade deal with the European Union.
Well, what do you think?
These politicians are never honest with you. They will never come out and honestly just say to you, oh well, at the end of the day, we do support a no-deal Brexit. SNP, and just socialists in general, they will simply oppose a position simply because it's in opposition to you. You say white, they say black. You say black, they say white. Simple as that. That's how it goes.
What we're now being threatened with is the austerity of 2010 to 20 on steroids. And at the same time, Some people have made a mint of money.
The reason why some people are benefiting for this is through the printing press, through all the bailouts and everything. There was no austerity in that period. It's just like he was talking about the cuts to the NHS. It's just a load of nonsense. It just shows you he can be as dishonest and all these folk just believe everything he says. They don't want to hear the truth.
My whole thing is I've never ever trusted a politician before. I always think that they've got what's the word? Ulterior motives, that's it. Agendas, do you know what I mean? But with Corbyn, he just seems like a genuine guy.
Well, that's quite interesting. So he actually acknowledges the fact that many politicians have got ulterior motives, and that is actually the truth. The reason being is because the fact that economic reality will never permit them carrying out all their, promises they make to the people. So that guy's actually quite a reasonable minded guy. I mean, he acknowledges something like that. Unfortunately, he's been led on by the image of Jeremy Corbyn. Folk need to realise that the image means nothing. It's the actual content, and it's not just a case of just listening to what they say on a given policy. You actually have to study the actual problems of what they're speaking about.
The schools, the children are our future. Generations are going to shit. We need to be educating these youths. We need to be doing something. So yeah, money for the youths, money for the schools. Labour for me has always been a voice of the poor.
Unfortunate as it is to say, you've got a lot of these young folk in that. They mean well. They've got all these good intentions. Their heart's in the right place and everything. They just don't understand fundamental basic economics, and that is the reason why we're in this mess today. And unfortunate as it is to say, I don't see that changing anytime soon.